Jason, welcome back to Run a Profitable Gym.
Heck yeah. Happy to be here. Fired up. Let's get it.
Yeah, man. And you are just fresh off the Jocko podcast too. So I'm really thrilled and flattered that you can make the time.
I'm fresh off of 2 cups of coffee and a beach workout this morning. So I'm like ready to go run through a brick wall.
That's awesome, man. Well, we're going to start off with Coach Like a Pro. And the question that I have is, a lot of times when a gym owner comes to us, the coaching in their gym is like a 7 out of 10. It's pretty good. They've been through the CrossFit level 1, maybe the level 2, and their business is like a 2 or a 3. But what we're finding more and more often now is that we're talking to these gyms where the business is already an 8, and maybe their coaching isn't quite as good as it once was. So what do? I mean, they could go to CrossFit seminars or take online stuff, but like, what's the best process to elevate their coaching game, and how important is that to the overall picture?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. So, we've worked with several Two Brain business gyms, and dude, you guys are legit. There's no question that Two Brain and the community is legit. People who buy into Two Brain are running a business like a business and not a hobby. And for that, I'm very grateful that there's someone like you out there, because for so many years, it's been something that I've strived for, is to see the industry level up from a business perspective. And I think that you're filling that void very well. Where I see a void in the industry, I've always seen this. I think that part of me, when I used to talk, and we used to do these seminars for free called Box to Business, so we used to donate the money. And I used to always just want to talk about the business side, not talk about the coaching. Now I've kind of flipped my script where I just want to talk about the coaching side. I don't really want to talk about business, because there's guys like you that are doing it better than we ever did, just to be honest. But where I think that there's a gap is, how do you take someone? So over the years, we've had hundreds and hundreds of coaches. At our largest, we had 30 locations that we owned and operated. How do you train, develop? I mean, across that, you're talking about, 100 coaches on staff. How do you make sure that you create guardrails and that you create an onboarding process, intern, apprentice, but also, like, how do you take them from getting a level 1 to their ability to go take the floor? It's a really difficult question to answer. And with scale, provide solutions. And what we've noticed is that we needed to create something internally for our own team. So we hit it as 3 parts. We have an internship program, which is really helpful because it helps with people who are internal, who want to become coaches. And you're trying to find the right way of saying, like, hey, you're good for the fit, you're not. But at least there's a system so that we get to see the buy-in from these individuals. Are they prepared to put in the time and effort to go through our process internally? That's number 1. Number 2 is we take them through something that we call Coach Like a Pro, which is now also available publicly, which we could talk about. And then number 3, the third pillar, is our NCFIT Collective, which is daily development, session planning, and programming. Those are the 3 pillars that we utilize here at NCFIT. And the one that I'd like to talk about is one that I think, just yesterday, the reason why this is so fresh in my mind, just yesterday, I repassed my CrossFit level 3, which then gives me my CrossFit level 4 again.
Oh, congrats.
And yeah, thank you. So CrossFit level 4, for those of you who are unaware, is the highest level you can get in CrossFit. And yesterday, I just retook my level 3 because it expired. I used to teach for CrossFit seminar staff. So I had an old level 4. I let it expire. And now I wanted to get it back just for myself. Like, is that going to add value for the business? Probably not. But I wanted to do it for me. The reason why I bring that up, though, is that CrossFit has, in my opinion, the best structure of seminars out there. I think a level 1 for a weekend course is brilliant. I think a level 2 from a practical application is good. I think a level 3, I just took it yesterday. It's hard. It's 160 questions. It's 3 hours long. But do any one of those 3 give me everything I need to produce the product on the floor is the question, right? They each are a piece of that puzzle. And I'd say the largest piece actually is a level 1. I'd say that's the most impactful. But what we were finding is that our coaches were coming out of a level 1, and there was a big gap from getting them there to on the floor. So we created something called Coach Like a Pro, which is an 8-module course where myself and coworkers of mine, MDV and Gabe, sat down and we created 8 one-hour modules, basically taking decades of experience. I started coaching daily in 2008. And how do I disseminate that information and provide it in a more practical setting? So we're not talking about movement. We're not talking about how to squat, how to deadlift, how to press. You should already know those things. What we're talking about is how do you actually run a class? How do you get, how are you scaling? How are you adjusting the workout? How are you setting a vibe? How are you taking them from minute 1 to minute 60 and providing the best hour of these people's day? And that's what we talk about for 8 hours. Along with that comes a workbook, and along with that comes weekly calls for 5 weeks. And man, we're putting together a 2-brain cohort right now. Tomorrow we have a call, and it has just been incredible. So that's where we're at. That was a long-winded way of answering your question, but it's coach like a pro.
That's awesome, man. So I really want to dig into that. Before we do, maybe can we just talk about NCFIT Collective and what that is? Check that off the list, and then we're going to go deeper into Coach Like a Pro.
Sure. Yeah. So, and we've evolved, so like I opened NCFIT originally CrossFit Santa Clara, then NorCal CrossFit, now NCFIT in 2008. So it's been a long journey. And as we expanded, we opened up many locations. In 2011 and 12, we signed a major deal with Western Digital that took us globally. And that was really the time where we said, wow, we have locations in Mexico, China, Malaysia. How are we going to offer a premium experience? And so we started taking from Google Docs and saying, dude, this Google Doc thing, we can't do this anymore. And so we created our own app, and we put daily videos and daily session plans for our coaches to create guardrails for our own team. We were saying if we had a crappy product on the floor anywhere in the world, it was a poor representation. So the NCFIT Collective takes what we actually use in our gyms today. The workouts are tested by our team. They're written by someone who just tested it, right? And we have an Outlook document coming out soon for 2024. And so I'm really proud of what we do at the Collective, because I can't think of another programming service. I think every gym owner should outsource their programming, but I can't think of another one that has a team of experts like we do, where each workout is tested. That individual who tested it then provides feedback. It goes through several layers. Then that individual who tested it writes a session plan for it with the nuts and bolts. And then we do a video on it, because we have the team to scale it, which an individual gym just doesn't have the time, nor should they take the time to do that, because it's not worth it for them. So that's the NCFIT Collective.
Okay. Well, we're definitely coming back to that.
Sure.
I saw the Outlook 2023, and that was so impressive to me. We're going to talk about the Outlook 2024, but let's dig into Coach Like a Pro. So when you're teaching this kind of stuff, so they take their L1, I've got somebody with like an L2 at my gym, but you're right, there is a disconnect in like what they're actually doing once they get on the floor. And this was true even with the CSCS when I took it back in 1998. You walk into the gym the first day and you go, but what do I do? So maybe just walk us through, the first step that you take people through in the Coach Like a Pro program.
Yeah. I mean, so, first off, it's the 8 modules. So like, I'm just looking, our agenda for content call 2 was, we reviewed modules 3 and 4, self-evaluation and class observation, which I'll talk about. Participants filled out a technical self-eval and had a fellow coach observe a class using a scorecard and takeaway doc, right? The videos assigned, so the ones we were going to assign, I'm reading off a Slack channel that we have with our team, was modules 3, which is all about intros and warm-ups, modules 4, which is about teaching best practices. I came in, talked about earned confidence, a few different things. Then MDV comes on and talk about a few other, things about specifics, warm-up goals, transitions, teaching, zoom in, zoom out model, all these different things, right? But each week we have homework associated with this. So what happens is these 8 modules are really like the broad strokes. Then we come in on a weekly basis and provide a 90-minute class on let's dive deep. But I think the part that we're doing that no one else is doing is we're holding coaches accountable to level up. So we have homework that is self-eval, but also having a peer of yours review your class. And man, I'm telling you, those 2 alone, there's more to the handbook than those 2, but those 2 alone have been instrumental in the growth for people, because people realize like, wow, I'm coming off too serious. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. All the intangibles of a great coach, because Chris, here's the thing. A great technician does not make a great coach. A variety of factors make up a great coach. If you're a great technician, but your athletes are not having fun, not enjoying the experience, if you're not communicating effectively, if you're not touching each one, either through tactile, visual, verbal cues 3 or 4 times, you're missing the point. And so you have these businesses that grow like yours because you help them from a profit perspective and a revenue. But what we're trying to avoid is revolving door, where these gyms work hard to get new leads in. They come in and they just have a suboptimal experience. And when you're when you're charging a premium, you have to offer a premium experience. And that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of through Coach Like a Pro.
Do you think that's actually an issue or a main reason why a lot of gyms, and I'm going to include CrossFit gyms in the statement, they don't charge a premium? And so when somebody like Nike shows up in the market for $99 a month, the consumer is like, what's the difference? I'll take the lower priced one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we as an ecosystem have to realize that there's two levers we need to pull continuously. One is leveling up as a business. You need to run a clean organization. You need to make sure that your employees are appropriately listed from 1099 and W-2. You need to make sure you have your AED. You need to make sure you have all the things that are business focused. Like, you have to run your business like a business, not a hobby. And your business is coaching, is group-based training. So it'd be like running a super badass restaurant that is just dialed in, from the amount of food you order to the profit margins you get. I mean, everything on the backside is phenomenal. But if your actual food or the service you're providing is subpar, you're missing out on a major point. Like, I've been in restaurants that have phenomenal food, but their service sucks. I'm never going back. At a gym, you could have everything dialed in. You get the most beautiful location in the world. But if that coach doesn't make you feel something, create an emotion, you're not going to have raving fans, which is what we're trying to build at NCFIT.
I think most listeners who have been around and own a gym for 5 years or more, they've probably experienced this on both sides, both as a client and potentially as an owner too. The thing that really stuck out the first time you were ever telling me about this was the self-evaluation. And that's something that as an owner, I know I should be doing all the time, but I really struggle to fit it in unless I'm really mad at the person. And then it's tense and awkward. How does that self-evaluation and the peer evaluation work?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up right here. So Coach Like a Pro, essentially the workbook. So we'll go through it. Starts off course objectives and breakdown, course outline. We go over our theoretical development of a coach, and we actually presented this at the Two Brain Summit for the first time, which I found it to be really cool. MDV created this from our team. At the bottom is culture and clarity. So one of the first things we do with people is we recognize that above anything in the pyramid, so like you think about like a CrossFit pyramid, sport is at the top, but at the bottom, the framework and foundation, there's much more that builds that up. And so for us, it's culture and clarity, making sure that you are communicating with your team and that your team, there's this culture, right, of feedback, culture of leveling up. From there, it goes to baseline knowledge, right? So that's going to be like mastery of the basic soft skill development. Those are going to be like, do you know the basics of the air squat, whatnot? Then you have feedback, informal and formal. We discuss. Then you have advanced skills and knowledge. Then at the top, MDV added this thing called polymath, which he has a legal background, but a polymath is just essentially someone who has a diverse language, is an interesting person, has a variety of things they could discuss. You're not just talking about only fitness, but you could talk about other subjects than just that one, which he breaks down. So we go over that. But back to your question about
evaluations.
Yeah. So the way that we do it is we do twice a year formal evaluations with our team, and we utilize a very formal documentation, which I'm happy to send over to you. And that documentation, there's a self-evaluation form. We also have a report card that we go over, but I'm rolling down to it. Self-evaluation form. So these are questions. Give a brief snapshot of the current stage in your journey and identify a goal on your radar, right? So we provide these self-evaluation forms to create a conversation, right? After that, underneath, you have a coaching scorecard. So you have an intro, a warm-up, teach, skill, workout, open items, and then you have a ton of different areas underneath it, which I'll have to send it to you. Anybody listening to this podcast, I'm happy to send this to them. But it's broken down in each one, and each specific criteria has its own score. So you can really dive deep into what area does this coach need improvement on? Is it in the intro? Is it in particular? Was the coach on the floor at least 5 minutes prior to class? Did the coach start class on time? Did the coach greet athletes and arrived on to the class? For the warm-up, did the coach administer an effective warm-up? Scale from 1 to 10. Was the warm-up demonstrated, explained effectively? Really kind of going in so that the more granular we could get, the more quantifiable the data we could have so that these coaches can actually make tangible takeaways to improve. Then we have our NCFIT coach takeaway form, We have a coach planning document that comes with it where we set up a timeline so that these people can start looking at, if you don't use the collective, how do you plan out your class, right? Just a linear line. How am I going to plan this out? Because one of the things we've noticed, Chris, and I think this is a huge takeaway for your audience to think about. If you're finding as an owner that your coaches are not reaching their potential as a coach, one reason why they might not be is because they're not prepared enough for class. And here's what I mean. If you're not prepared, the coach cannot allow their enthusiasm, their personality to shine because they're too worried about what's coming next. So think about whenever you're giving a talk, whenever you're doing something, you're so worried about what I'm going to say next that it doesn't allow you to engage because you're thinking about, okay, at minute 2, I need to do this. Okay, wait, what's next? What's the warm up? What? But if you already have your plan, now you know what you're going to do. And it allows the personality to come through in the coach. Because if you ever met a coach who's like phenomenal, but as soon as they get on the floor, they fail, oftentimes it's a failure to plan so that they're so in their head, they can't perform. So that's what these documents we help them with.
That's amazing. Honestly, I think every gym owner listening to this has done this before. I really want to help my coaches get more knowledge. I'm going to send them to the seminar. Coaches are eager to do it. They want to be better coaches. You send them to the seminar. They spend a day or even 2 days. They come back. What did you learn? And they can remember maybe 1 or 2 things. And 2 months later, maybe those things are lost. But when you compare it to the evaluation process and the way that you've got this all set up with Coach Like a Pro, it's actually much better. And I just want to read you a quote from one of the participants. We have a cohort going through right now just for 2 brain gyms. And the participant said, I brought this up during the discussion and related it to the feedback you've given me about over-explaining. So this coach is like in the program, and he had received some feedback from another coach at their gym that he's an over-explainer. It could be me. That's me. Jason then hit me with the hard truth that I was likely doing that because of insecurity. He followed that up with some encouragement to trust myself and trust that you have put me in this position of authority, so I don't need to apply reasoning to every little thing. It was a very powerful moment being called out like that in front of the rest of the cohort. Jason, like when you built Coach Like a Pro, did you do it in a way that like you intended for these kind of moments to happen, or did this just kind of like emerge from the way that you've got it set up?
Yeah, the goal of Coach Like a Pro is to get coaches uncomfortable. And so if you're listening to this and you want your coaches to level up, or if you want to level up as a coach, we're for you. But if you're not comfortable with getting a little bit uncomfortable, we're not for you. We're just not. And that's okay. Like if you're not prepared to have your class reviewed, if you're not prepared to take feedback in a very constructive manner, it's just not the right time. But I would also say that if you're not prepared to have your coach review or to get feedback, then you got to evaluate why not, right? Something that I learned, I was going through a leadership course with Jocko's team through Echelon Front. And one of the most important takeaways that I had was detachment. Detaching from my ego, my emotion, and my perspective. And that's something I'm taking into every single class, every single business meeting, every single thing I'm doing. Because what happens is I don't know how much you want to go into this, but from a leadership perspective, I believe every leader needs to walk into a situation detached from those 3 things. I'll just explain a quick situation for you. So one of the instructors there shared this story. I found this to be really profound. This gentleman, JP, goes for a CrossFit class. And it could have been a jiu-jitsu class, but either way it works. And he shows up 15 minutes late for a class. And everybody listening to this who's a coach has had someone come in 15 minutes late. And this guy, JP, is a former Navy SEAL. So he shows up late and the instructor says, I thought all frogmen are on time. Go ahead and start doing burpees. JP, roger that. Got it. So he starts doing burpees. After that, he finished his class. He never goes back again. But the instructor never asked why, hey, is everything okay? Are you late? Because here's what happened. He shows up 15 minutes late. What happens to that instructor? His ego becomes attacked because he's saying, hey, this guy doesn't value my time as much. He's a former SEAL. He thinks he's better than me. My ego is being attacked. I'm emotional. I'm in the middle of class trying to deliver a great product, and this guy interrupts me. I become emotional. And the perspective, my perspective is, right? Hey, class started at 8 a.m. You showed up late. My perspective is you're not respecting my climb or the class's time or all this kind of stuff. That's my vantage point, right? But what's JP's vantage point? JP was on his way, would have been on time. He saw a woman on the side of the road. This is a true story, by the way. He saw a woman on the side of the road who had a flat tire, and he stopped to help change her flat tire, and that's why he was late. If the instructor had just gone up to him and taken a deep breath, just detached from everything that he was feeling at that moment, and just said, "Hey, JP, is everything okay? You're never late. Why are you late?" And JP had said, "Hey, man, I apologize. I saw a woman on the side of the road. She needed to get a flat tire changed." What do you think would have happened? He would have been like, "Oh, dude, all right, no problem, bro. Go ahead and just jump on the bike. I'll get you in a class in a minute." And it would have continued the relationship solid, right? Because what would have happened is his ego and his emotion would have been deflated, and he would have seen it through someone else's perspective. So something I'm thinking about as a leader in our gym and through our organization is anytime I step onto a Zoom like this, anytime that I'm out anywhere, anytime I'm coaching a class, I take a deep breath beforehand and I remind myself, detach from my ego, my emotion, and my perspective. So anybody who joins our program needs to come in there knowing that so they can get the most out of it. And with this person in particular referring to, I oftentimes see instructors over-explain, and I've done this too, because of their insecurities. And I'm raising my hand. I told this to the individual. I said, "Look, I'm insecure too. I'm probably one of the most insecure people meet, or you'd think I'm much more secure than I actually am. That's why I'm always chasing these level 4s and this and that, because I feel like I need to always be chasing something. But the reality is I've been anointed by the owner, or in my case, I am the owner, to be this subject material expert. And I need to be more comfortable that this person saw that in me as a coach, and I am the expert in the room. Because the more that I try and over-explain, the more it actually takes away from who I am as a coach. And that's what we explained to this individual. And it was just a light bulb moment for them that no one needs to validate them. They've been validated because they've been anointed in that position as it is. Now go out there and thrive.
Well, I think that is a massive example of what happens in this program, because most online programs or courses or whatever, they really struggle to deliver value because it's just delivering knowledge. And, here's an instructional, or here's somebody speaking at the whiteboard, or here's a quiz or whatever. But what really attracted us to Coach Like a Pro is just like, it's not just the feedback part of it, but you're giving people these experiences that they're going to remember forever. I guarantee that coach had a life-changing experience when you said that to him.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you another example. One who was reviewed said that he came off too serious, and he wouldn't have known that. He wasn't trying to be serious, right? He's not trying to be, but better is better. And he didn't know he came off serious until the person reviewed his class. He would have never even have known. So imagine our ability just to leapfrog him, because when you come off too serious, what ends up happening is you're not trying to be that. What you're trying to do is you're trying to focus on people's movement. You're looking at them, but it comes off very serious. And all of a sudden people get uncomfortable. And we as coaches need to realize that I'd rather have a coach that makes people feel like they're cared for, they're passionate to help them, that they're bringing an energy to the room that makes them light up. I'd much rather have all of that than someone who's a technically better coach, because people come back when they're enjoying the experience. And if you're too serious as a coach, you're detracting from that. Unless you want like a one-on-one Olympic lifting session or something like that, that's different. But if you're coming in for a group class, you're going for the environment, and the coach's responsibility is to create that. And if you're too serious, you're doing it wrong.
I had to learn that the hard way. And early on, my first business mentor said, you got to hire somebody else to run the 6 a.m. class. And the only person who was willing to do it was a girl. She was a sophomore in college. Obviously, I, at that point, had a degree and had all these credentials and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I got to put somebody in there. And she was bright and happy, and she was the first person you wanted to see every single day. And her class just grew exponentially because of that. And, I was lucky to learn that lesson early on, that it's really about the environment that you create more than it is what's up in your head, right? So awesome lessons. What I want to do is pivot a little bit into programming, but I want to make the audience, understand, like, these are two different things. You don't have to do NCFIT programming to do Coach Like a Pro. You don't have to, do Coach Like a Pro to follow NCFIT programming. My gym started with NCFIT last year about this time, because Jason, at that time, you shared with me your outlook for 2023. So can we start there? Can you talk about what the outlook document is and why you do it?
Yeah. So full disclosure, you talk about delegation and team building. I am not like hands-on on the 2024 Outlook document. We have a great team that does that. But what the Outlook document does for us and the team, right? Or the 2023 or the 2022 or the 2021, it sets expectations for the year for people that utilize our program. It sets expectation for our own team. It lays out exactly what we're going to be doing over the next year and how we're going to execute on that. And in the past, we probably overdeveloped it. This year, what we're trying to do is put together something that's like actually digestible for an owner or coach, but then something a little bit more broad for our internal team. And what that means is that, again, if you're not planning, you're not setting yourself up for success. And so what we do is we clearly communicate, hey, this is our NCFIT track. We have our performance and fitness version of that. We have our compete track. We have flex over here. And this is what we're doing in 2024. Let's ride. Let's get ready to rock. And so that is going to be done here in probably the next week or two. And then we're going to start sending it out to people to get people fired up for 2024. Because again, with me, when it comes to programming and coaching, we have a team to do this. Like if you're a gym owner out there and you're running a single brick and mortar, you have so many more things you should be doing than creating a 2024 Outlook document for your team. It just is not going to move the needle. But for us, it is going to move the needle because we have a variety of different people that need to know what we're doing. And we have a team that's going to spend probably hundreds of hours on this. You shouldn't be spending hundreds of hours on it, which is why whether you use us, which I do believe we're the best, or another, you should be outsourcing your programming.
Okay. And we're going to get into the numbers on that too. But I remember seeing the Outlook document this time last year, and I went through it and I said, this feels like old school CrossFit. This feels like the CrossFit that I fell in love with, 2007, 2008, maybe, a little bit more evolved than that. But that really kind of reignited the passion for CrossFit in me, to be honest. And can you talk about like, how do you formulate the programming for the year and what are like the most important elements of it to you?
Well, I think the number one element is, there's a variety, but I think testing is important. I think planning is critical. And I think fun is cornerstone, like period. Like if your programming is not getting people excited, if you're, you have to bridge the gap. Back in the day, if you think like old school CrossFit, right? Hold an L sit. For the duration you held that, go jump on a rower. Like we're not going to program that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not designed for the traditional brick and mortar space. We're going to think about workouts going to leave people feeling, wow, that was awesome. Yeah, every blue moon, maybe you'll do something random, but for the most part, 99% of the time, people should be fired up when you're leaving your gym. And I understand there's value in running a 5K. I understand there's value in back squatting 5x5 and going home. I understand that. But for our business, it's just not going to happen because for us, we have to run a for-profit business, which requires our athletes to feel like they're accomplishing something. And yes, if you're a phenomenal coach, can you make a 5x1 back squat day? Great. Sure. But in general, we find that people want to sweat before they leave. They want to have a great workout and they want to learn something new. Like that's where we're at. And so when we base this year, we're thinking, hey, what are our macro themes? What are we trying to accomplish this year? We have a performance and fitness track. We want to make sure that our performance numbers are appropriate. We want to make sure our fitness numbers are appropriate given the audience. We want to make sure that we're, we don't really use the leaderboard necessarily as much. We're really trying to focus on the best experience for that athlete for that day. And we use a few different factors. We use RPE, rate of perceived exertion. We use specific like workout types. So there's like grind, there's effort, there's, different types. And what that does, it helps our coaches create a vernacular very quickly. So athletes walk in the door, hey guys, welcome to the gym. We have our performance workout over here. We have our fitness workout over here. Today's gonna be an effort day. That means it's gonna be 12 to 20 minutes. We have an RPE 7. That means like on a scale of 1 to 10, we're looking at 7. And now all of a sudden athletes walk in, they're like, done. I already know where I need to be because we created this understanding. So the 2024, what we're focused on, making fun, effective workouts, making sure we're communicating that well with everybody that uses our programs, making sure that that is then disseminated to the members really well. And then I think that's what's success. Yes, we're going to have, micro, we're going to have strength cycles and different stuff like that. But for the most part, we're trying to focus on just like really fun, exciting workouts. They're going to be easy for coaches to execute well.
when you're programming, I mean, it must be very, very tempting to program a lot of really technical stuff. I mean, you've been one of the fittest in the world now for a decade. How do you get outside your own head and program for kind of everybody else? I think a lot of owners, including me, I've always struggled with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important not to place your own personal fitness on your membership base. And that goes as a coach too. But the way that we do it right now, so you have several people that are involved in the actual. So we have one individual who's programming Compete. We have another individual that's programming Flex. We have a group of people that are programming NCFIT. They program it, and we're like a month out. So this is like the actual way we do it, if you want to know. So we program it. We're about a month out. We have this macro idea of where we're going, and we break it down into monthly, and we break it down into weekly, and we break it down into daily. With that, we then come together as a team. We review the next week's programming. So today is Wednesday. Yesterday at 10 a.m., we have a group call where we review the week of programming for like 3 weeks from now or a month from now. We say, okay, we like this programming. We maybe changed a few things. So one person kind of creates it. Then a few people maybe put the finishing touches on it. We then send that out to the testing team. Once it goes to the testing team, each workout is tested. So let's just say it's, I don't know, 500 meter row, 20 cleans, 5 rounds. We test it to see, hey, should it be 400 meters? Should it be 135? Should it be 95? Should it be this? Should it be that? Like just the little touches. Like in general, we keep it, but sometimes we've changed it, right? Sometimes I test them, sometimes other people. After it's tested, if nothing changes, that individual who tested it then writes the session plan, how they prepare for it, how they do this, how they do that. If something changes, they might need to test it again. And that goes on for the NCFIT program. Flex and Compete are a little bit different, but that's the general theme.
How do you audit results? I mean, one of the things that most impressed me, the first time I ever went to CrossFit HQ, and Greg had just turned over the programming for the main site to Tony Budding, but he was involved in the review. And he told me that when he owned a gym, his programming for this month really depended on what his clients did the previous month. So, well, we tried rope climbs. It didn't really work out. So we're going to do a bunch of pull-ups and pulling style movements this month, and we'll come back to rope climbs again in 2 months. You know, how do you audit when you've got such a massive scale and so much scope?
Well, I mean, I think it happens within our gyms, right? So just here in the Bay Area, you have 1,000 active people just between just in the Bay Area. We're seeing 1,000 active people on a daily basis, right? So or more. So we're getting a lot of inputs. And those inputs are coming in, but we also have people that are supporting the programming that are not in the gyms, which I actually think is a good thing. So we have people that are in the gym, people are outside the gym to provide inputs to say, hey, where are we going? And I think ultimately, I've changed my tune on this, meaning like back in the day, it was all about performance and looking at your members and saying, hey, am I going to be able to get them a muscle up? Am I going to be able to get them a handstand push-up? Now it's more like, let's create a program that's effective and fun that keeps people engaged. So what are the metrics that I'm paying attention to? Attendance. Right? Retention, revenue. If those numbers for our gyms are continuing to go up, and if we're receiving feedback, they're going up for the rest of our group, then I think we're doing the right thing. Whereas maybe years ago, I would have said, hey, I want to look at a leaderboard and see are these people qualifying for semifinals or regionals or whatever. That's no longer a metric that we're strongly pursuing. We want to see growth through benchmarks and things like that. We want to see benefit. But what we really want to know is what is our average check-ins? What's our revenue look like? And how's our attrition? If we're seeing that going in the right direction, it tells us that the program is a factor. It's not the only factor, but and then also surveying our members on a regular basis, surveying the collective. Hey, how do you guys feel like we're doing? What type of feedback do you have for us? And MDV's done a great job of always getting on the phone with any gym owner who has a strong position that maybe we could improve something, because it's never going to be perfect. And we're always striving to get better.
You were one of the first to do this like at a large scale, to kind of confront that forging elite fitness mentality back in the day and build a massive brand that wasn't all about forging elite fitness, and it was about forging everybody's fitness, even though you were one of the most elite yourself. Like, what was that like in between 2010 and 2014? I'm sure there are some lessons there that the rest of us can learn.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, the big lesson during that time was, as you grow, just make sure you create systems and procedures to grow with appropriate levels of like consistency. I wanted a consistent experience at any gym people went to. But I think that I also learned that I was trying to be everything to everybody. And I think that I had to learn that I had to be more true to who I am, provide a product that I believe in, which is today more than ever where I'm at in terms of my, what we're offering, which we could talk about. But between 2010 and 2014, we tried everything, Chris. We tried Pilates. We tried spin classes. We did yoga. We offered kids class. We offered daycare. We offered jujitsu. I mean, literally from 2010 to 2014, we had every single fitness thing you could think of. We had an Olympic lifting class, a gymnastics class, a kids class, you name it, we offered it. And I think what I learned the hard way was that when you're trying to be everything to everybody, you can't dive deep. And I think that what I would have done differently is instead of trying to change and have all these different programs, all these different things, I should have just kept with one program that evolved to where we're at today. And it took us doing 30-minute classes, 45-minute classes. It took us doing all those things to get to where we're at today, where just reevaluating like how complex we want to go and where do we want to be in this level. We do not want to be Orange Theory. We don't want to be F45, but we also don't want to be doing muscle ups, rope climbs, and handstand push-ups every day. We don't want to be those guys either, but it doesn't mean that we have to avoid them. And I think that's what I learned over the years.
One of the most profound things that I've heard you say, and this probably would have been around 2016 in Montreal, was scale by complexity, not by intensity. And I think maybe the audience could benefit from hearing like what the difference is and what you mean by that.
Well, I think that originally, and this was the original intent of this, is that with a decreased duration of class, it allowed us to, so with an increased duration of class, it allowed it for more complexity. So for example, if you have a 30-minute class, like this morning, I went to the beach, we did a Train Hard Men's Club workout. It was 30 minutes long. We jumped in the ocean and got out. We're not going to do snatches and overhead squats. We're going to do bodyweight squats, burpees, and kettlebell swings. And we're just going to get after it. But if I want to teach more fundamental skills like a rope climb, I need time to develop that with people. And so with the increased duration of class allowed us to get more complex. But I think that what's important is we're going to always have intensity as the guiding principle for results. I believe that through intensity, obviously making sure people move safely, that creates adaptation in your body. You need your body to say, oh my gosh, what's happening? So it could create an adaptation. I think that over the years, we tried many different ways to get evolved at, but I think where we're at today is our fitness track is, in my opinion, exactly what we should have rolled out with years ago. So our performance track still has the complex stuff. Like if you're going to see a snatch there, you might see a hang power snatch at our fitness track. I wish we had looked at it like that a little bit more than actually a specific class. I think that gyms over the years have just gotten too wrapped up in the leaderboard and this idea of scaling or RX. And it almost puts this weird stigma on people who want to adjust the workout. But at our gyms over the last X many years, like people just adjust and it's not a big deal. But it took us years to create that culture.
Well, I think genius doesn't come easy and there's more genius in subtraction than in addition. The cool thing, maybe the thing I like even best about you is that you're willing to try things, but you're also willing to stop doing things when they're wrong and then talk about both. So, and honestly, Jason, I think that's probably one of the things that helped you, and I wouldn't mind touching on this. You went through the pandemic from a ton of gyms, and you shared before this, you had 7-figure gyms that went to zero and now they're back to 7 figures again. What were the things that you focused on most to bring them back, and is programming part of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the programming is a cornerstone. The coaching is, like we said before, I think the coaching on the product on the floor matters. I think the program you're delivering matters. And I think the way you run your business matters. those are things that matter. I think that you could be a phenomenal coach, but if the programming, if the workouts are boring and it's fine, but long-term, you're not going to have the retention that you want because people are going to want more exciting stuff. So I think programming matters. I think the way that you set your coaches up for success matters the most, meaning every day our coaches have every tool at their disposal to perform a great class. We are taking care of everything. Gone are the days of, hey, go run your 400 meter while I'm creating the warm up and the workout. Because guess what? As you're running your 400 and I'm thinking about that, what I'm not doing is setting myself up to be in the best position to dominate when they come back because I'm thinking about what I'm doing next instead of having a plan. So by us setting our coaches up for success, it means session plan with in-depth session plans. It means videos. And that's ultimately what I think took us from doing really well to being shut down to doing really well, is paying attention to the fundamentals, trying to do the common, right? Really uncommonly well, where our coaches are getting provided products like Coach Like a Pro and daily session plans to deliver a great product, while simultaneously we have a phenomenal team on the back end running the memberships and doing that kind of stuff. You need both. You can't do one or the other. Like, how many times have you been into a gym, whether it's jujitsu, yoga, Pilates, CrossFit, you name it, where the instructor is just amazing? Like, oh my gosh, it's incredible, right? But they don't get back to your emails. They don't answer the phone. They don't bill you. They just don't bill you. And you're like, damn it. Like, you're so great, but you're missing this side. Or how often do you have a business that's just like cutthroat, like on point, like everything's dialed, but you go in there and there's no culture, there's no environment. The coach isn't doing a good job. You got to have a blend.
Yeah, I think that's where the two brain actually originally came from, was that you need to be great at the art of coaching and the science of business. And obviously now I think there's art and science to both sides, but there's a few key places I think that owners of gyms miss opportunities here. One is evaluating and improving their coaches. Another is trying to do the programming themselves. We all come into this as technicians, and so we tend to overthink things. Or the opposite is sometimes true, where you're so busy that you look for like the spiciest workout online, and that's the workout today. I think one of the greatest investments that a gym owner can make is paying for coaching. And now you've taken that a step further and made it possible for me to just invest in coach development, not just coach training or certification. And I really commend you for that, Jason. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, all I'm trying to do is do stuff for myself and then share with other people. Like, at the end of the day, Chris, like, dude, I'm not talking from, like, if you're listening to this podcast, I own gyms. If our gyms suck, it's on me, right? It's my responsibility. And what can I do to level up our team? What can I do is the question I'm asking every single day. And the question becomes, if I'm leveling up our team, well, why don't I then sell that to other gym owners, right? Like, if it's working for us, why wouldn't I provide that to the overall ecosystem? That started off with the NCFIT Collective, and now it's evolved into Coach Like a Pro. But I think what's really important for anybody listening to remember is, like, this has came out of necessity as being a gym owner with the scale that we have. Everybody listening, your programming is not necessarily your secret sauce. Like, you might be good at programming, but the reality is, and I mean, I'll stand by this, like, your programming is not the differentiator. Like, your actual 21-15-9, it needs to be good, but it's the plan behind it that's different. So if you're creating this and you're spending an hour creating a plan for an entire week, how good is that really going to be? But if you're spending 10, 20 hours during the week to create a plan, couldn't you be doing something else with that time, right? Couldn't you be paying me or another provider just to provide it for you? How much time how much is your time worth to you to go spend that on, attaining new business instead of just trying to create your programming? And if you're listening to this, you're like, dude, I love programming. Okay. Like, that's fine. You might love it, but what does the business need from you? The business is a third party, unbiased. And just because you love to do something doesn't mean you should be doing it for the business. If there's a better way to outsource it, I would recommend doing that. And when it comes to coaching products, like, if you're not, evaluating your coaches, if you're not providing them a system, I think that you're missing out on an opportunity there. And so either use ours or create your own, but you got to be doing that kind of stuff.
I do think that gets lost in the shuffle quite a bit. All right. Well, I do want to take a minute, 2 minutes maybe, to talk about Train Hard. And because this is kind of like the new evolution that you mentioned to me when we were both down in Austin at the Rogue Invitational. What is it?
So today's a big day. I don't know when this podcast is going to go out, but today we just launched Train Hard merch for the first time. Yeah.
Awesome.
Right now. And let's talk about it. So I started off in the fitness space at 15. I started working at the front desk of a health club. I then found CrossFit in 2006, opened a gym in 2008, and then, kind of evolved from there. Well, over the last, I'd say 6-7 years, I've gotten interested in other things. I roll jiu-jitsu regularly. I'm getting ready to compete in the tactical games. I spent a lot of time working with military and law enforcement and supporting them on the fitness side. And my interests have changed as I went from a 21-year-old athlete to a 38-year-old dad of 2. Like, my interests have changed. And do I still want NCFIT to be the most thriving, badass CrossFit gyms in the world? Absolutely. Do I still want them to impact men and women every single day, 100%. And NCFIT needs to continue to do that at the highest level for gym owners and coaches, taking the things that I've learned over the last 20 years and sharing with them. And I've also evolved, right? And a lot of people listening, I hope can relate to this. Like, you're not the same guy you were when you opened the gym 10 years ago. And neither am I. I no longer really have a desire to do some of those complex lifts like full squat snatches or muscle ups. Can I still do them? Did I do them at the Rogue Invitational? Sure. But I don't really desire to have them in my program right now, especially because of how much jiu-jitsu I'm doing. So we have our team on the NCFIT side that's absolutely crushing it. I was just at the gym right now. But I also have the Train Hard side that's starting off as just a newsletter, right? Every week we're putting out newsletter, just things we feel connected to about for dads and moms who want to be able to train, protect, and provide. And I just want to talk about what that means to me. Like, my goals have changed from trying to be able to be the fittest on earth to be able to protect myself and my family. If I need to run, jump, climb, lift, I want to be able to do that. And most people listening here probably can already do that, right? Like, they train enough where, like, my son fell into a fire pit last year and I had to jump and throw him out. I want to have the fitness to be able to do that, not to mention the combatives and that kind of stuff. I also want to be able to provide, and this is something that's really important to me, provide experiences. Every day I get home and my son's like, let's go play baseball. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. I want to be able to say yes. That's important to me, right? And never say no because I'm too tired or too out of shape. I also want to be able to provide financially. It's very important to me. And I feel like if I train hard, I show up better during the day, I show up better at work. Ultimately, it'll give me more confidence. And I believe I'll see more potential with my revenue potential because I'm going to be able to show up different. So we are creating a brand for dads, for people who want to train, protect, provide, who want to act the part, look the part, but never let momentum get to zero. And eventually we will be rolling out an online app, which are going to be different programs than what we do at NCFIT. NCFIT, you have a coach's eye. Like, we're running classes. Train Hard is going to be designed for people who want to do it in the gym, in the garage, or on their own. And they still want to embody the same characteristics.
That's awesome, man. And I think every time we speak, you've got something new, which is super duper exciting, but it's all also like really awesome to see what never changes. You know, you hold true to your core and you do different things kind of around the perimeter, which is just fantastic to watch. So Jason, thank you so much for being part of this. Jason, I'm sure we'll have you back on again before Summit, but we're going to have you at Summit next year in June in Chicago too. And in the meantime, Coach Like a Pro, the first Two Brain cohort is about halfway through right now. 10 out of 10 recommend. They all love it. And we'll put directions to get more information in the show notes.
That sounds great. No, I really appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to talking with you soon about the state of the industry and everything you've been doing. I think there's a lot to dive into because it's tangible numbers. It's not like, oh, I have 500 members. It's like, well, talking about the financials. And then I'm super excited to be back at the Two Brain Summit. I really want to focus on things that are important to me at that moment. So last year we talked about leadership and a few other things. Those are still evolving. And I think that we continue to evolve. So we'll see what we come up with this year, but I'm excited for it.
Thanks, man.